GM, good morning. Welcome to the Milk Road Show, the daily show that's as reliable as your morning alarm clock. I'm your host, Jay Hamilton, and today we're joined by Tyler D, one of the greatest storytellers and a great investor in the crypto space, to talk about, is Bitcoin dominance peaked? And if it has, what do we do? Does that mean altcoin season is on? And what tokens are we looking at? We might share a few that are bullish and maybe a few that are bearish today as well. Tyler, welcome back to the show.
Jay, it's awesome to be back. It's funny, the last time I was on, I was wearing the Bitcoin propaganda hat. Today that hat is off and we're talking Bitcoin alternatives. It's just a week and a half later. It's funny how things change.
Things change fast in this space. So let's start out with what is making us feel that Bitcoin dominance has peaked right now. What's going on? What are you seeing around crypto Twitter?
Yeah, we're seeing more and more folks, top respected traders like Kaleo. I think this is where it caught my attention. He's mentioning that he feels like the Bitcoin dominance cycle top looks like it is in, and that alt season is about to begin from here on out. You know, if you take a look at the chart, right, it does, his point makes sense. So Bitcoin dominance peaked around 70% last cycle. Of course, we've had a whole slew of coins, L1s, launched since then. So it makes sense logically that dominance percentage would peak at a lower level this time around. Well, right now it's at like 60%. It's been grinding up pretty steadily, basically since the market flipped bullish in late 2022. And people are starting to look for, what are the alternative plays from here? And I think you can make a reasonable case that, in fact, the Bitcoin dominance has topped. Now, that doesn't mean Bitcoin's not going to keep going up. The idea here is that alts will start to outperform compared to Bitcoin. And of course, that's what we're all looking for, right? The higher returns.
And this is a thesis that at Milk Road we've been talking about for a long time. So if you've been listening and you're sick of us saying this thesis, even though it hasn't peaked yet, and I think the point is we don't know when Bitcoin dominance is going to peak exactly, but we are definitely in the range where more people believe that we are there or close to there. So this is the time when you start to look at alts, what could outperform Bitcoin through the next this bull. Let's talk about the first token that we're excited about right now that could definitely, it is outperforming Bitcoin over the past few months, that's for sure. Tyler, break down JLP for us. What is JLP?
Yeah, JLP. So first, I have to give credit to my FOMO Hour co-host, Mando. He has been touting JLP as his primary play for months, kind of talking to us about it almost on a daily basis. We actually got into it more deeply this week because his business partner, OSF, he actually posted on Twitter that he got into JLP, and then he stole all the limelight from Mando, who's been touting it for weeks and months. So that was funny. Clearly, Ovi is a little bit more popular with some in the crypto Twitter space. But let's start with basics. So what is it? JLP stands for Jupiter Liquidity Pool. So this is tied to the Jupiter protocol on Solana. This token, you effectively are the counterparty to Solana traders. You are effectively playing house and earning fees from perps traders. So to define more terms here, perps are futures where traders can go long or short crypto majors like Sol, ETH, and Bitcoin. JLP, the value itself is derived from three primary factors. So at a foundational level, it's an index of Solana, ETH, Bitcoin, and stables. So you've got majors here in the index. Second up, you've got traders' profits and losses. So trader losses are actually being accrued back to holders of the token via the fees. And then 75% of the fees generated from those trader transactions are being fed back to this token as well, which drives the APY, which can be very, very juicy. In fact, I think it's sitting over 100% right now. The APY has been kind of trending in that 50 to 100% range here for a while, which is very attractive. If we take a look at what is in the index itself, right now, 45% Solana, 9% ETH, 10% Bitcoin, and 35% stable. So that gives you a little bit of a picture of kind of what the basket is, like what you are investing in, and then how you can get fees on top of it. And of course, there's a bit more to unpack from there.
Just to explain it a little bit further, so it's an index of these 5 assets, and but it's not just, you're not just holding these 5 assets. It's also gaining fees from through Jupiter. Am I getting that right? I'm struggling to wrap my head around this. Perpetuals, it confused me constantly.
Yeah. So you are earning the fees from people, traders on Jupiter who are trading perps on the Jupiter platform. And effectively, like a gigantic percentage of these trades are running through Jupiter. So the reason this is important, and we've seen it in some of the price action, is when you have crypto is very volatile. You have volatile days to the upside, and you have volatile days to the downside. On days like, or on the crash that happened this past weekend, right? Crypto majors dropped 20 to 30%, Solana perhaps even more. Well, guess what happens on those days? Trading volume spikes. So in a product like JLP, that's actually is a good thing because you are earning those fees. And if we take a look at the price chart, we actually see how quickly JLP recovered in this recent dip compared to the rest of the crypto majors. And it was pretty impressive. So you're actually rooting for those high volume, high volatility days because, you know, you're playing house and you're earning the fees on that. And then, you know, but it's not just a fee product. You also have the index of a basket of assets that also tracks the markets as well.
So the fees is what drives the APY, which we'll talk about in a second, because you say 100% APY. And I hope everybody listening to this show is like, red flag, wee alert system, like 100% APY is too good to be true. But we'll talk about what makes that up in a second. But then as well, the token is following this index. Let's just take a look at the token for a second. So this launched back end of last year, November last year, and it's just been up only since then.
Yeah, it's incredible. What are we seeing here? It's up 130% roughly since launch. I think that's outperformed Bitcoin, outperformed ETH in that time, maybe underperformed Solana. So I think that's where this token gets interesting, right? It's actually a bit more conservative than just holding Solana because you've got the index is 45%. So 10% ETH roughly. We'll just back in the napkin math, 10% ETH, 10% Bitcoin, and then 35% stables. So in some ways, it's a little bit less risky compared to holding any of those individuals. You get exposure to the 3 plus the 1/3 stables as a bit of a hedge in big downturns, right? But in a scenario where Solana greatly outperforms, JLP will underperform Solana because it's not 100%, right? It's 45%.
So if you believe that we are in a volatile market, which, I mean, you don't need to believe that we are, and you're not sure whether we're going to go up or we're going to go down from here, at least in the short term, JLP could be a great token to hold, not only for the token going up, but also for this incredible APY. I just want to bring up the 3-month chart here so you can explain what happened with over the weekend. How did this token drop so much and then pump back up so fast? Like, this V pattern is wild.
Yeah, exactly. So it dropped in line with the drop in the index prices, right? So price of Solana dipped, price of Bitcoin dipped, price of Ethereum dipped. But it didn't dip as much because you've got the stable kind of backstop right there, right? So 33% of the portfolio is going to be stable. But then it spiked incredibly quickly, faster than those majors recovered. So I think that's the question of like, why did this V-shaped recovery faster than everything else? And again, it's because of the fees. It's because on those days where the tokens dropped really fast, you saw huge spikes in volume, which generated huge amounts of fees. And then similarly, when the crypto majors started to rebound very quickly, that also led to a spike in trading. And then you earn fees on that as well. So that's what's happening here. And that's why, if you think, we are in for a period of chop solidation, I think is a slang term being used, with ups and downs like this. And even if you are bullish on Solana, capturing a majority of that trading, it's a good product because Jupiter's the lead on Solana. you're going to capture the up moves. You're going to capture fees in the down moves as well.
Is there any other tokens that you invest in that have fees? There's not a lot. It's not a common thing in the space yet.
No, I can't really, off the top of my head, rattle off others that are similar products to this.
Very interesting. Okay, let's talk for a second about this APY because I'll pull up on the site here, 106.26% APY right now. Now, obviously, this changes daily, but holy moly, man! Like, what? How can you explain how that works?
Yeah, I mean, they've got the primer right there. Basically, the APY is calculated based on 75% of the fees generated from the perps trading on the platform. So they are effectively loaning these assets out to traders. They're loaning Bitcoin, they're loaning ETH, they're loaning Solana out to traders to go long or short with. And those traders are paying fees to do so.
And so if the chop slows down, then there's less trading, then the APY would presumably go down.
Yep. If trading goes down, the APY can go down. And the other risk here to note, because it is important to understand what the risks are, you are playing house. So you are the trader's profits and loss, which is the middle bullet point on the screen here. So you are capturing fees when traders lose. But let's say, and historically, I think traders generally lose to the house. But let's say some whales go on real heaters and really start to win. They can they are effectively beating the house, and then the token would come down and the fees as well. So that is the downside. So it's important to understand what some of the other risks are tied to this.
Although certainly, I think, as you said, the house always wins usually. So I like the idea of being able to play house. You don't get to play house very often in the markets. So great opportunity. Let's just take a look at the chart to show the fees so we can see what's going on here and how much fees are accumulating right now.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty wild to see. I mean, basically up only, and you just see those huge daily spikes. I think we saw they go up to over $1 million, over $2 million a day. And it's kind of like aligned to just the broader crypto cycle, right? We spiked big into Q1, things cooled off a little bit early Q2, and now the volatility in summer driving up the fees. I think it's also just tied to Jupiter's dominance on Solana and how much it's being used across the blockchain.
Okay, so friend of the show, OSF Ovi, who's been on before and is your co-host over on FOMO Hour or Rect Radio. God, I can't even remember which one you guys are doing. FOMO Hour, yeah, thanks. Has moved all of his soul into JLP. Mando, I'm not sure what he has done. What have you done? Have you made moves?
Yeah, I'm dabbling in JLP. It's not one of my bigger positions, but I think for me, this is an interesting one. If you capture big gains, like let's say you make a nice like meme coin trade or something, rotate those profits into something a little bit more stable like this. I think it also becomes more interesting later in cycle. So like if you do think Solana is going to continue to run, which I do, so I'm actually leaning still a little bit more towards holding more core Solana. As Solana starts to run up, and I think a lot of people have their targets in like 300, 500, 1,000. We don't need to get into price targets, but as they get closer to your targets, starting to take those gains and then rotating back into more of an index product with that stables hedge, right? So it's a little bit, you still have exposure to the majors. You've got the stable aspect, which is a little bit, more conservative. And I think this is one where you can find yourself kind of rotating more and more into as the cycle goes on. And that's my current plan as well.
Awesome. Love it. Okay. Let's go from JLP to another token that's catching a lot of the limelight this week, which is Sui. Sui, another L1 that is up 18% on the week. What's driving this over at Sui? What's going on here?
Yeah, I think going out a little bit further on the risk scale here, which is something I love to do personally. I think the big news here, Grayscale announced that they are adding 2 new trust products here this week. They're adding a Tau trust for the Crypto X AI maxis out there, and then a Sui trust product. So quickly to define terms, if you're not familiar, grayscale trusts effectively function as an ETF. So let's taking a look at the GBTC, the most famous grayscale Bitcoin trust. They effectively hold Bitcoin through Coinbase custody. Investors buy shares of GBTC that indirectly track the price. So you aren't, as an investor, you aren't buying the underlying asset, you're buying these shares. They are effectively holding and managing those tokens for you. So Grayscale has their ETH Trust. Now they're launching a few more of these trust products. So that was the big news that bumped the price target of SUI. But I guess backing up, so what is SUI? So I think Raoul Pal did a nice primer here this week. He's describing it as an ultra fast, super efficient L1 blockchain from the team over at Facebook, Meta, who are really just looking to scale blockchains. And I think scalability certainly has been, one of the concerns and focus points for those building in the space here for this last cycle, if not longer. I think we saw the Grayscale CEO actually, he had this quote during the press release that SUI is redefining the smart contract blockchain. So it's this combination of ultra fast, super scalable, super efficient, also having the smart contract aspect. So it's competitor to ETH, it's competitor to Solana as well. And I think it's starting to capture more folks' interest who may have not had this one on their radar.
When you sit back and you look at SUI, are you thinking that this could be the next Solana? Are you thinking that it's going to have a run in this bull cycle, that it could be something that's more going to hit in the future bull cycle? What's the thesis, do you think, here?
Yeah, that's the question. I think before we get there, a quick look at some of the stats. So just to set the stage, SUI is currently the 31st biggest crypto token by market cap. It's at 2.2 billion. 8.5 billion FTV. So compared to Solana, it's about 1/10 the size. It's currently 16th in TVL. It's got about $500 million in TVL right now. That is down from a peak around 750. They've got about $50 million in stable coins. So that's a quick primer on kind of the assets, key metrics on SUI right now. For me, there's this concept of a next man up trade for L1 blockchains. And last cycle, Ethereum was the key player. Solana was next man up. Now we're in the next cycle. Solana is, I think, the key player, and folks are starting to look for that next man up that will be the Solana killer of next cycle, like Solana is the ETH killer that many think it is for this cycle. So that is the bet to be made, and if you get it right, there's huge upside. Right. So like Solana went from like $3 to $260 last cycle. And of course, FTX had something to do with that. But we're talking 80 returns on the table. Even if you see smaller multiples of that, still major returns to be had. So the question is it SUI? Is it Say? Is it Celestia? Is it new L1s, perhaps like Monad? I think the jury is still out, but starting to take a look at what the horses in that race are right now. Starting to do your research and starting to make bets, it seems like a plus expected value thing to do.
So Raoul Pal tweeting about SUI, a long thread, is obviously a big signal to a lot of investors. What do you think led Raoul Pal to do this?
Yeah, so he's on the board, right? So I think he even says it in the board of the foundation. So you have to take all of his kind of bull posting with a grain of salt. So I think we can leave it at that. It was interesting that several other kind of influencers were also bull posting SUI all on the same day yesterday. It had never been on my feed for months, and then it was on my feed from 10 to 12 different places. So I thought that was interesting timing. Perhaps some grants were involved. Mm-hmm. But what was interesting to me about Raoul's bull thread here is, he defined what it is early up, and then he just starts diving into technical analysis, or TA. And he starts comparing SUI to these other tokens, other L1s. And that's just not the way that I look at it. Like, I think TA in crypto is great until it's not. And I think if you're going to try to pick the next L1, the next man up, I think you got to be looking at more like fundamentals and then intangibles. Like, are people using this? Are people talking about it? And I don't think you're going to get that from TA. So that's my read. Of course, Raoul, a much more successful investor than me, but that's how I'm thinking about it.
Okay, so we got JLP. You're doing a little bit of allocation towards that, more of a safe bet. We got Sui. Have you done any investing in Sui? Just so we're clear there.
I actually have a little bit of Sui, not a huge amount, just from some buying much closer to when the token actually launched.
So we got Sui is a little bit more down the risk curve. Could be the next man up L1. I mean, if you could pick the next man up L1, obviously, yeah, that would be a great bet. But tough to pick, hard to know. And then if we go take another step, what's a token you're looking at that maybe you're not so bullish on and maybe even a little bit bearish on right now?
I hate to bring it up, but it's got to be Blast, right? So like Blast was one that, I think myself, a lot of folks were really bullish on out of the gate. We had our Blast Gold price targets of like $8 to $10. I was in that range. I mean, if you take a look at the numbers right now, Blast Gold is trading at like 80 cents. So we were off by a factor of 10. Which is difficult, especially for the folks who were farming with lots of capital. Luckily, I was I didn't come into the farming with a whole lot of capital, so I did okay on that. But if you take a look at some of the numbers for Blast, I think TVL is down like 65% since the airdrop, the token launch, and it feels like attention and just general economic activity on Blast feels like it's down even more than that. It in fact, I think it perhaps came to a head this week where one of the leading meme coins on Blast, PacMoon, bridged off in a pretty major announcement and spectacle that led to Pac-Man, founder of the blockchain, to kind of come out, make a statement saying like, "Hey, we've been building silently. We are shipping behind the scenes." Try to calm people's nerves, but I don't know if it should have calmed anyone down.
I was gonna say that feels more like emergency PR stuff than actual news that he's saying. And obviously, Pac-Man moving off just makes me laugh because PacMoon, everyone thinks that PacMoon is connected to Pac-Man, and it's not. It's totally separate project. But it felt like to me, I was like, did the founder leave Blast for a second? And those are the types of things that happen in this crypto world if you're not deep in it, which a lot of people aren't. So Pac-Man did not leave Blast, but PacMoon, the leading meme coin on Blast, did or is leaving Blast to move to Solana, correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Okay. So not so bullish on Blast. Are you the only one that's taking this take on Blast, or do you think others are feeling good about it?
My view is probably consensus, but then we've got a friend of mine, Clemente. He does the Bodago's morning show, and he's calling bottom on Blast sentiment here this week. He thinks that the PacMoon exit rather is the bottom signal. He's touting this new prediction market, Predict.fund that's coming. He's touting the success of Fantasy Top. I think it's a bit of hopium, if I'm being honest. I don't think the fundamentals are backing it up just yet. Like I'm not saying here that Blast is going to zero by any means, but it just kind of shows that this L2 landscape is just increasingly difficult, right? Like it is very hard to get good teams and builders to come build successful dApps on your L2. And there's always going to be like the next L2 up, right, with their own shiny incentives. Now we've got Abstract launching from Lucanets and Cygar, and they've got their own incentive packages. So like you could go launch on Blast right now, or you could go with them who are still, pre-token. And there's more examples than that. And I think you need the dApps to win. And I think Fantasy Top is the primary dApp still doing well on Blast, but they need a whole lot more than that to continue keeping mind share and this price.
I want to know, you guys listening in, of these three tokens, JLP, Sui, and Blast, are you in any of them, or do you plan to get in any of them? And is there any tokens we didn't talk about today? If we're correct that Bitcoin dominance has peaked and altcoin season is starting, what tokens are you interested in learning more about? Let us know in the comments. We would love to make sure we make shows that are for you and capture the content that you're looking for. As always, none of this is financial advice. Investing in crypto is risky, and you should only invest what you can afford to lose. If you want to support the show, smash the like button, subscribe, make sure you stay up to date on the top crypto news. Thanks so much for joining us today, everybody. Have a wicked awesome day.